Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of naturallyhealingautism.com podcast. This is Karen Thomas, your host, and I have a special guest today that is another subject relating to something that I used with my own son to help balance his symptoms of autism. And our subject today is neurofeedback. And I know that many parents have not really heard much about that, but it was so useful to me and to my son, and still is today, that I really wanted to make sure that you knew about it. It's even been added to my autismmoms.com mentor program. So I wanted to be sure that I shared it with you. Today's guest is Heidi Seastrand, and Heidi has a master's degree in clinical psychology and extensive training in neurofeedback, and she's been doing it for over a decade. And I personally know Heidi. I actually took my son Jacob to her when he was first diagnosed about almost 11 years ago now, and through the years he has seen Heidi, and we have had phenomenal results. And I'm going to let Heidi kind of give you a little bit more background about what kinds of results that you can see with neurofeedback and how it's used and what it's used for. So she's been practicing for over a decade and saw the results also because she got into this field because of her own personal needs, which she can share with you as well due to an injury that she had had. So just to give you a tiny bit of background, and I'm going to let Heidi do most of the talking here, but neurofeedback helps people of all ages, and it basically is exercising the brain waves. It's kind of like she used to tell me, like a brain gym. So you can help the brain in how it's having trouble processing. And we all have strong and weak areas of our brain. So to help bring it back to balance, that's what neurofeedback is really, really helpful for. So very, very happy to have you here, and welcome, Heidi. Thanks for being here.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Karen. This is so exciting to talk about one of my favorite things, neurofeedback, and how you can balance the brain and not really identify so much with labels that our kids and ourselves are going through, but to really see the symptoms that we're suffering from and how to balance that. So it's really about brain balancing and training the brain to learn something new. One of the other analogies I like is riding a bike. You're teaching yourself to ride a bike. Well, you always remember to ride a bike because you've learned those neuropathway connections. So the same with something else. If you're wanting to be more relaxed or regulate yourself and not have so much anxiety, then you're training the brain to self-regulate and to relax, and it gets familiar with that. And then it's like, oh yeah, we know how to do this, and can get back to that. So it's really about being stuck. I like to think of it as a rainbow spectrum. And if we want to really live fully, we want to see the whole experience, be able to feel the sadness and be able to feel excitement and all the emotions in between. And it helps to regulate that. So emotionally, it also helps with sleep. So sleep is a big thing for people that have difficulties, and it's the body's way of regulating itself. So if you have a hard time falling asleep, then you most likely are over-aroused. And if you have a hard time staying asleep, oh wait, maybe I got those backwards. Anyway, my own brain is flipping it around, but it's really about if you're over-aroused to relax, and if you're under-aroused to stimulate, and finding the right way to do that. Because the brain has so many different places that you can place the electrodes to train it. I think of myself as an artist and looking at my clients and my patients and seeing like what could really be beneficial for them. What part of the brain needs to be calmed down and what part of the brain needs to be stimulated. And then there's also the inner hemispheric, where you're getting the left side of the brain talking to the right side of the brain, and you're getting balance. So seeing what the symptoms are and what it is that you really want to focus on really helps to navigate through that.
And you mentioned electrodes. So a lot of parents listening have never heard of neurofeedback, don't know how it works, what you do to the child, and the whole process. It's kind of fun because I remember it looking, when I watched my son do it, was kind of like he was watching a Pac-Man game on a computer. But could you go ahead and explain it to them?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, I'm just going to take you on a little journey here and roll back a little bit and show you here my little electrodes. So because what I was explained is that here they are. See, they're just little like stethoscopes for the brain. So it's non-invasive, and it's just picking up, like the stethoscope, you can hear a heartbeat. And with the electrode, it's just a tiny little metal flat surface that you prep the skin and then put some conductor's paste so it sticks. But it's really like a stethoscope for the brain, allows you to see into that part of the brain. So like I mentioned earlier, it really depends on where you place the electrodes to have access to that information. So it's non-invasive, and it's just reading the brain waves.
So if somebody comes in and they tell you that they or their child have specific symptoms, then from those symptoms, you're able to, through your experience and education with neurofeedback, able to get a pretty good sense of what part of their brain is needing more activity or less activity, and how you can balance it. And then don't you have different computerized like programs in your computer for certain things as well? Is that correct?
What part of that's correct?
For certain, okay, for certain symptoms, I was trying to remember like how you assess and how you choose what you do.
Right. So the games itself are really what that person is gonna like, because it doesn't really matter. So if, for example, I remember that your son really just liked the graph starting. He was someone that liked to see just a very basic, simple graph, the same as my computer, because as it works, when we jump into that, is that, okay, we place the electrodes on the scalp, and then it sends that information to the therapist's computer. And the therapist has it all blocked out and can see each brainwave frequency. So you have your delta, which is the low frequency for when you're sleeping, the theta, which is that lucid state just before sleep and awake, and alpha, which is a calm, focused, relaxed with your eyes open or closed, and then you get into the betas. And then the high betas. So it's building on top of that and seeing which one is not participating with the other frequencies. So for example, we put the electrodes on and we go, wow, there's a lot of low frequency here. Well, what's that really going to mean? To me, I like the basics. Can you tell me what that means exactly? Well, what that means is that you're kind of asleep while you're awake. Well, that I can understand. Your kid's like checking out or like not able to pay attention. I noticed for my daughter who has ADHD, she's with me and then she's not with me. And the checking out, you miss instructions, you miss being able to follow through tasks, things like that. So it helps to be able to create more awareness and be able to, oh, I checked out, and that low frequency kind of kicked in. And so we're training that low frequency to kind of play nice with the other frequencies and regulate. So it's not dominating that part of the brain, and you're having to fight with that. I think of like the classic Snoopy when Charlie Brown gets on the phone and he hears his teacher talking and it's like, it's like, that's what happens. It's like you just check out and then it's like, wait, what happens? Like, what was the assignment? What did you just ask me to do? Because your brain dips into those lower frequencies.
Right.
So,
and that's really common with children on the autism spectrum. Focus and attention.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
Sleep and anxiety and depression and just so many of those issues. And it was interesting that, in fact, you've just recently been seeing my son again, because like anything and being a gym for the brain, through time, we can need tune-ups. And as I do craniosacral therapy, this is the same exact thing. After some time goes by, life just happens and the brain and things get out of balance and you need tune-ups. So I've sent my son back recently to see Heidi, and I loved what you had said that that now he's just needing a smaller series of appointments, but that that before, and I tell people this because they think, well, what was your son like before? But he had a lot of anger and aggressive issues in the past. And now he is this mellow, sweet guy who really doesn't even get angry hardly ever. And you noticed that right away when you saw him, how, you remembered how angry he used to be. Now see how calm he is.
Yeah. And what's so great is because we have had times in between, it's been a long time since I've seen him. And it was just so amazing to see how he's matured and grown into himself. And you're right, there wasn't that underlining angst that was there when he was younger. And it's so awesome to see that his brain, even though there'd been years in between seeing him, still remembered, just like riding a bike. And it was like, oh yeah, that's right. I functioned better when I was like this. And so it remembers, and it's really easy to get back to that place when you've had the training. So the brain never forgets. So that's what I love about it, because it's long-term benefits. Even years after you stop doing it, you still can get that by coming in and getting some tune-ups. So.
Yeah, it's amazing that the brain remembers so well like that. And can you go into like how the treatment works and how to find a qualified practitioner, and maybe even the training that parents should see that those people have, so they know that they're getting somebody with some education? I remember when we first started seeing you as well, that we had to come at least twice a week for a series of several weeks, if you can kind of remind me about that. But so because it is like a gym for the brain, you need to come often enough that the brain starts to remember in the beginning. So can you explain that a little bit for people, like how this works?
Absolutely. Yes. So if you came once a week, it'd be like going to the gym. Yay, you made it to the gym. Like, you're alive. You can reconnect with all the equipment and you feel a little bit better that day, right? I mean, you feel good. You went to the gym. But it's not going to get you to that long-term goal of being really fit, or you want to be in a marathon, or whatever your goal is to function, right, at a higher capacity. So it's kind of along the lines of that. If you come for 2 times a week, it'd be like seeing a personal trainer. You're going to make some progress. But I remember when I went to Pilates 3 times a week, boy, did I have a banging body. Too bad that doesn't work the same way where it stays. but you could do that and get to that physique that I wanted, and then titrate and come a little bit less and still, kind of maintain that. But if I was going 1 day a week to the gym, I was never going to reach that goal of really feeling complete and connected. And the same thing is with the mind, is that flexibility, the mental flexibility and the comfort that comes with it, of feeling comfortable in your own skin. I think that's one of the things that I hear the most, is that, and even for me, because, as you mentioned, is that's how I got involved in this, was I was in my own need for some relief. And so that's how I got into the neurofeedback. And it was just amazing to be like, wow, I feel comfortable in my own skin. I just feel better. I feel more in that ability to witness. So it brings in the consciousness that you can see yourself living, and then have an opportunity to make a different choice. So
it's really helpful for all the issues of sensory overload.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And pain management as well. Isn't that true, that neurofeedback is just for pain management?
You know what, Karen? I would say that neurofeedback should be one of the main things that you go to first if you're having any dysregulation, whether it's sleep, pain, emotion, memory, focus, concentration, emotional outbursts, even hormones, because the hormones are regulated in the temporal lobe. So if you're having hot flashes, so I can't really think of somebody that it wouldn't be good for, or good, to help assist in whatever it is that they're doing. It is used for peak performance. I know that the U.S. Olympic team was doing neurofeedback to help get that precision and be in the flow. And what is that? It's, well, you're operating in a complete 100% organic way that's not questioning, judging, second guessing, or, you know, putting any pressure on yourself. You're free flowing in this world. And I think that that's really a challenge for kids with autism and ADHD, is that you're constantly getting stuck and there's this rigidity, right? I think there's a lot of rigidity that goes along with that, because you can't transition and it's hard to make those changes and to focus and concentrate and integrate socially. And all that's coming with information. So if you can regulate the way that your hard drive's working and processing that information, then wow, isn't that amazing? So for me, I was in a lot of pain. And so I know you had mentioned that I was in a kayaking accident. And prior to that, I had severe learning disabilities. I was 19 at second grade reading and had a really hard time in school. And I pushed through and I had a lot of help academically, but I was in a kayaking accident that just kind of blew out my nervous system and caused a lot of other issues. Now, when people are already prone to neurological sensitivities and issues, you get a big crisis going in there, you can exacerbate that. And so that turned into fibromyalgia for me. And so with all that going on and being heavily medicated, because the Western way is to just throw meds at that, which is fine, but that wasn't the long-term approach. I was 25 years old and was just not willing to accept that that was going to be my fate. So I went on a quest to find my own answers, because the doctor said it was in your head. Really? Well, because my body's telling me I'm in a lot of pain. So if it's in there, I'm going to go find it. And that's what got me to my master's program. And ironically enough, that's where I learned about neurofeedback. I was camped out in the back of the classroom because I couldn't sit in the chair for that long of a period, and I had neck issues. And so I'd make a campground in the back of the class and would learn that way. And they mentioned neurofeedback, and I was like, wait a minute. So you're telling me there's a way that you can train the brain to not have these symptoms? And for me, that was like, well, if I don't have the symptoms, then I don't have the problem. Like it doesn't matter if it's on a piece of paper. I don't care. Right. As long as I'm not daily, struggling with those issues and really having such a hard time. So it helped me with the pain. Obviously, I'm no longer in need of those kinds of medications. And I do have flare-ups, so it doesn't eliminate symptoms. So it's not a cure, because you are who you are. But it definitely makes it so you're not broken with being who you are, and you can operate in a way that's more of high functioning. So I was able to get rid of the meds, not be in chronic pain, and really start my career in this area, because I was really limited. And so I was on a quest to find answers and then be able to help other people with the same kinds of needs. So that's how I got into this. And you had asked about finding a practitioner. Now, one of the things that I've learned is that everybody does it differently. It's a tool. So just like the stethoscope, like you can move it on different parts of the body and learn different places that maybe the heart's not working right, or, the breathing, or use it for different things to kind of see. And I also do intuitive work with it because I have the high theta. So someone who has high theta isn't a bad thing. You're just processing all kinds of intuitive information. And so being able to access that, but to be able to regulate it. So now I can dip into that theta and go into that dream intuitive world, and then bring it back, that information. So there's an intuitive piece when you look at a person to see what they're struggling with, and how you really can help them be the best that they can be with what they have. Because some people, like myself, I'm prone to having a really ruffled nervous system. And so I know that I kind of have to regulate that a little bit. But I also know that I have a hard time focusing, so I need stimulation too. So there's a balance between stimulation and being too relaxed. So finding that medium allows me to, wow, I can be focused, not be distracted, concentrate, and get things done, tasks from A to Z sequentially, which was really, really hard for me. Even just reading and comprehending a story, because it's all sequential, was really difficult. So it's helped in so many ways that I'm just really grateful for this tool. And I know that EEG Spectrum has a place to look for practitioners, and that's who I trained with. And then I know that there's other, now obviously, because I've been doing this for so long, even before, because I was a social worker for 5 years before I went into private practice. And so 15 years ago, it wasn't as relevant and people really weren't aware of that. But now it's becoming more mainstream. Even some insurances pay for it now, which wasn't the case in the beginning. So
yeah, that would be.
So
really
I think
helpful.
it's really important to trust your intuition and to trust a feeling, because regardless of any tool, I really believe that the therapy starts with the relationship. If that person gets you and you can feel like, oh, I want what they have to deliver, and they have been there, done that, have the knowledge, have the degrees, whatever it is that you can feel comfortable. It feels light to you to trust that person to work with you or your child.
Yeah, I always tell parents to interview people on the phone, get a good sense of them, and you know, and use that, especially mother's intuition. You know, do you feel like this is a person that you connect with, that you know that fits for you, or something just kind of doesn't really feel right? Then if it just really doesn't feel right, hang up and call somebody else.
Absolutely.
And I will in the notes at the bottom of this page for the podcast at naturallyhealingautism.com, I will put eegspectrum.com so that people can find the resource to find a neurofeedback practitioner. It is also in my book, Naturally Healing Autism, in the chapter under natural practitioners, and on the blog on naturallyhealingautism.com. I do have a resource guide to natural practitioners of multiple different ones, and it is also in there. So again, people can find the resource to do that. I feel so highly about neurofeedback that when I developed my program, which I highly encourage people to look into, it's autismmomsmentor.com. And it's a step-by-step online video program that I developed to walk people through every step that I took to recover my son from his symptoms of autism. And it was one of the things that it took me a year to develop that program, and was one of the things that I made sure was in the program was neurofeedback, because our kids are very much affected by brain miswiring for whatever reason, whether it's pathogenic bacteria in the gut, or if it's other toxins, heavy metal toxins, or various things that can happen. And so as we start to get their biology better, we want to be able to get their brain the support it needs to help it rebalance. And that's what neurofeedback is really, really helpful for. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add, Heidi?
No, I think that we've covered a lot about the basics. If anybody has any questions, I'm totally open to discuss and see how I can be of service and help anybody find the right practitioner or the right things that they need to just live happy and balanced.
And
yeah, we did. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, you want to give your contact information. You have a website.
Yes, I do. It's at HeidiSeastrand.com. And also my phone number is 805-295-9417. And I'm totally open to help you find your way.
And Heidi is in the United States, because people around all over the world are listening.
Yay, we're international.
Yes, we're very international. Yes, and I will also put that link at the bottom of the page on this podcast page as well. So yes, thank you so much again for joining us today, Heidi. I truly appreciate your time and all that you've done for my family and for other families as well. And I hope that parents find a lot of value from this, and I encourage them to seek out a qualified neurofeedback therapist so that they can see what benefits that they can bring for their children.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. And thank you for all that you do to help people that have needs and are looking for resources. So I'm just so grateful to be here with you and to be of service. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, it's all about getting the kids better because we know that they can get better, right?
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah.
All right. Thanks again,
Okay.
Heidi.